Damon brought another woman home again. This time it was a tall fair-skinned blonde model wrapped in a nearly transparent nightgown, giggling as she lay on the bed. Damon didn't even look up. His long fingers were smearing paint across a canvas, his tone indifferent. I stood at the kitchen doorway, still holding the freshly sliced fruit, fingertips trembling. "Hi, Sister Eve." Vivian smiled at me smugly, a hint of condescension in her eyes. "Your necklace is beautiful." At her words, Damon's gaze flicked to my neck. His voice turned ice cold. "The necklace. Give it to Vivian." I froze in place. That necklace was the last thing my mother had left me. Blinking away the sting in my eyes, I reached for the clasp with trembling fingers. I couldn't even register the pain in my chest anymore. I only remembered that the last time, when he asked me to give a model the ring he'd gifted me during our courtship and I refused, he broke all 10 of my fingers. The time before that, a model complimented my earrings. I hesitated for 2 seconds, just 2, and he violently tore them off my ears. My earlobes still bled to this day. The necklace dropped into Vivian's palm with a soft clink. She winked playfully. "Thanks, Sister Eve." Damon's eyes lingered on the woman on the bed, but the words were for me. "There's a banquet tomorrow night. Come with me." I stood in the doorway, unmoving. Vivian suddenly giggled and tugged her strap lower, deliberately exposing a large stretch of pale skin. She looked at me provocatively, her legs striking a deliberately suggestive pose. "Eve," Damon's voice darkened, "if you won't go, then get the hell out." I looked at the red corners of his eyes, a sure sign of lust. The model smirked at me triumphantly, twisted her waist seductively, and sat on Damon's lap. As the door closed, I heard the sound of fabric tearing. I covered my ears and turned away, heading for my daughter's room. This was the 99th woman. Ever since Damon became a hotshot young artist in China, he started using the excuse of finding inspiration to bring home a constant stream of nude models. He called it art. "Mommy, did Daddy bring home another strange auntie?" My 6-year-old daughter looked up at me, confusion filling her clear eyes. I knelt and gently stroked her hair, forcing a smile. "Yes, Daddy's working. But they're barely wearing anything." A stab of pain twisted through my heart, but I could only soothe her gently. "Nova, be good. Go to sleep now. Tomorrow Mommy will take you to the amusement park, okay?" She nodded and crawled obediently under the covers. I closed the door and leaned against the wall, feeling like a massive stone was crushing my chest. I could barely breathe. 10 years of marriage, I had given everything. And in return, I got more and more muses. I thought I could get divorced until I discovered he'd cursed me. I couldn't leave him. I couldn't even stay far from him. Late at night, a cry woke me. "Mommy, Mommy, help me," it was Nova's voice. I bolted upright, no one was beside me. The cries came from the balcony. I ran barefoot, stumbling toward the sound. The glass door to the balcony was locked from the inside. Nova, wearing only a thin nightgown and barefoot in the freezing wind, was pounding desperately on the glass, sobbing with tears all over her face. "Keys, where were the keys?" "In the studio." Just one wall away, I could hear a woman's breathy moans and Damon's low, teasing laughter. My blood turned to ice. "Damon! Open the door!" I screamed, pounding on the studio door like a madwoman. My nails screeched horribly against the glass. A few seconds later, the door opened. Damon stepped out, clothes disheveled, his face still flushed with lust. He frowned impatiently. "What the hell is wrong with you, screaming in the middle of the night?" "She's locked outside. Nova is on the balcony." I pointed, voice trembling. He froze for a second, then sneered. "She went out there herself." "What does that have to do with me?" I couldn't take it anymore. I raised my hand to slap him, but he grabbed my wrist and flung me aside. "Eve, stop pretending to be the dutiful wife and loving mother," he looked down at me coldly. Back when you stole my sketches for your childhood sweetheart, you were way more ruthless than this. I froze. Nova's cries abruptly cut off. I turned to the balcony in horror. Nova's tiny figure was slowly sliding down. Nova! I screamed, slamming my fists against the glass in panic. Only then did Damon realize the gravity of the situation. He rushed toward the balcony door. No time for keys. With a curse, he grabbed a flower stand and smashed it against the glass. Crash! Ignoring the shattered shards all over the floor, I ran onto the balcony barefoot and scooped Nova into my arms. Her body was ice cold. Her breath was barely there. We need a hospital. Get us to the hospital. I screamed, hysterical. But Damon didn't move. His face was clouded with something dark and twisted. Go to the hospital for what? To see your precious vegetable of a childhood sweetheart? He sneered, dream on. As long as I'm alive, don't even think about seeing him. The model walked out, wrapped in a blanket. Seeing the scene, she exaggeratedly gasped and covered her mouth. Oh my God, what happened? Damon, I get faint at the sight of blood. What should I do? She whimpered, collapsing weakly into his arms. Damon scooped her up in his arms, his brows tightly furrowed, voice filled with barely concealed anxiety. Don't be afraid, I'm here. He strode outside without sparing me even a glance. I told you to take us to the hospital. Don't you understand? I grabbed a shard of glass from the floor and threw it at him. It cut across his cheek, leaving a trail of blood. Vivian screamed and clutched his face, while my daughter trembled violently in his arms. In a weak voice, she said, Mommy, it was that auntie who locked me out. My heart seized. Then what about Damon? Did he allow it? I opened my mouth to demand an explanation, but his expression suddenly turned vicious. He wiped at the blood on his cheek, ready to explode, but Vivian let out a sob, claiming she was scared. His expression softened instantly. Gently, he covered her eyes, soothing her in a warm voice, Don't be scared. I'll take you to the hospital right away. Nova's little face was purple. I was shaking uncontrollably and forgot all about arguing. I just broke down and cried. Damon, I'm begging you, please take us to the hospital. I swear I'll never leave you again. Damon had deep psychological issues. He believed I only married him because of my childhood sweetheart. He was convinced I'd stolen his artwork for that man, ruining his reputation. No matter how I tried to explain, he refused to listen. He even ran my childhood sweetheart over with his car, leaving him in a vegetative state. When the public's opinion turned on him, he began bringing models home more frequently. When our daughter had a high fever at 3 months old, he was in a private theater with the first nude model, seeking inspiration. Our daughter nearly died. When my father died in a car accident, he locked me in a cabinet and forced me to listen as he had sex with his 30th model. I missed seeing my father for the last time. When I was pregnant with our second child, just as I went into labor, his 77th model insisted on playing soccer. He tied me to a chair and let her use my belly as a ball. The baby didn't survive. Neither did my uterus. A year ago, he brought home his 98th model, this one from the Meow ethnic group, and secretly planted a curse on me. Now, if I get more than 10 steps away from him, I feel like I'm being torn apart. That night, I lost my temper and demanded a divorce. He shackled my wrists and touched me at will, not with desire in his eyes, but a coldness that chilled me to the bone. Divorce, he sneered. In your next life. Pray you never meet me again. Now, Damon's expression turned icy. Just when I thought he was going to ignore me, he suddenly pulled me to him. Eve, you know what happens when you lie to me. You're never leaving me in this lifetime. At the hospital, Damon didn't come with us. Because Vivian complained of dizziness, he anxiously carried her into the VIP room. I thought of Nova's blue lips, and my heart twisted with pain. The hospital hallway was long and cold. Dr. Carter said if we had arrived a minute later, Nova would have died of hypothermia. I collapsed to my knees in fear and grief, sobbing uncontrollably. "Where is the patient's family?" a nurse yelled. "Room 112 needs an urgent blood transfusion. We need a large volume of Rh-null, panda blood." I staggered to my feet, tears still falling. "My Nova. I'm Rh-null. Take mine." Before the elderly Dr. Carter could even breathe a sigh of relief, Damon appeared and yanked me back. His brows were tightly drawn. "Vivian is fainting from blood loss. She needs a large amount of panda blood. Come with me." "No, I won't go. My Nova still needs my blood," I shouted. Damon's face darkened, his tone harsh. "No. You must give blood to Vivian. If you hadn't gotten blood on your foot, she wouldn't have fainted. This is your punishment." He dragged me into the blood drawing room. For once, he was gentle as he covered my eyes. "Don't be afraid. It won't hurt. It'll be over soon." From the next room, Vivian let out a soft moan. His grip on my arm suddenly tightened. "Don't stop. Draw 1,000 cubic centimeters." The nurse hesitated. "That much, it could kill her." "Do it. She won't die. My muse must not suffer," he snapped, as if desperate to drain every drop of my blood for his model. When the transfusion was done, he rushed into Vivian's room without looking back. In a tender voice, he said, "Be good. For now, use her cheap blood. Once we're back in London, I'll make it up to you properly." My vision went black. I stumbled toward Dr. Carter, Nova's attending physician, then collapsed at his feet. "Please, take more of my blood for my daughter." Dr. Carter shook his head in anguish. "Another draw and you'll die." I forced a smile, ignoring the agony that racked my body and soul. I couldn't survive long anyway, not more than 10 steps from Damon. The burning pain in my heart made it hard to speak. My tears hit the floor like drops of lead. "Do it. Save my daughter. I'm begging you." When I opened my eyes again, I saw Nova being covered with a white sheet. They were about to push her into the morgue. I screamed and fainted, collapsing onto the gurney, only to come face to face with Damon holding his model in his arms. He frowned and muttered, "What bad luck." I went mad. I hurled myself at him, hitting him with everything I had. "Stay with my daughter. It's all your fault. If you hadn't stopped me from giving her blood, she wouldn't have died." His face stiffened for a second, but then he chuckled coldly. "She's gone, so what? The baby Vivian gives me will be prettier and smarter than yours ever was." I laughed through my tears. Then I picked up a fire extinguisher and smashed it into him. Damon's face twisted with shock. He shoved Vivian into his arms to shield her and kicked me away with all his strength. "Have you had enough?" He looked down at me, exhausted and condescending. "Vivian faints at the sight of blood. What are you trying to pull this time?" The pain in my body was nothing compared to the agony in my heart. I stared at him, pounding my chest, crying out, "Is your model that important? More important than a living, breathing life? She needed a blood transfusion to survive, do you understand?" Suddenly, I broke down in sobs, eyes filled with hatred. Dr. Carter said that if we'd been just 1 minute earlier, Nova would have survived. "Damon, let's get divorced. Nova is dead. I'm not afraid of dying anymore." He let out a cold laugh. "I thought you'd come to your senses long ago. Regret it now? Too late." Vivian suddenly gagged and vomited on Damon's clothes. He looked down at her anxiously, not even caring about the stains. I swallowed back my tears, and my heart twisted painfully. Damon had severe mysophobia. Even during our passionate days, if I skipped a shower for 2 days, he wouldn't let me near him, let alone if I threw up on him. Even when he drank himself into a stomach hemorrhage, vomiting until he was dizzy, I stayed up with him at the hospital all night. When he woke up, the first thing he said was, "Why do you smell so bad?" But now, he didn't even flinch. I should have known all along, those who are favored can get away with anything. Vivian glanced at me smugly and giggled. "Don't be so nervous, Damon. Maybe I'm pregnant." His relief was visible. He threw the soiled shirt into the trash with disgust and asked her with concern, "Did the smell make you or the baby sick?" I looked down at the shirt I had carefully picked out for him, now discarded like trash. I let out a bitter laugh. I wanted to see, since he had cursed me, would it be my life that held firm, or his? I got up, my head buzzing. The blood at the back of my head had already dried. Damon watched me warily, afraid I would hurt his precious muse. But I'd said it already, I wasn't afraid of dying. And before I died, I was taking someone with me. Vivian stood in front of the stairs. I charged at her like a mad woman, grabbing her arm. Damon tried to stop me but only managed to grab my sleeve. "Don't come closer, or I'll push her down." 2 lives lost, are you ready for that? I laughed through my tears and picked up a vase nearby, but didn't strike. Through tear-blurred vision, I stared at Damon and couldn't help but ask, "Was it you who told her to leave Nova outside?" His brows knitted together, his expression terrifying. Vivian didn't mean any harm. She just thought Nova seemed lonely and wanted to play with her. She's just a little scatterbrained. Forgot to bring her back inside, nothing more. Let her go. Eve, be good, he stepped forward, his gaze softening only for Vivian. Then, after a beat, he said something that shattered me. "You love kids. You can help raise my child with Vivian. A mixed-race baby will be cuter than Nova anyway. You're not really losing anything." I sobbed until I could barely breathe. I never thought he'd be capable of saying something so cruel. Damon seized the moment, snatched the vase from my hand, and smashed it hard against my head. He even covered Vivian's eyes while doing it. Vivian burst into tears, collapsing weakly against him. "Damon, I'm really scared." He gently stroked her hair, comforting her in a soft voice, "I'll make her apologize to you." Then he looked at me coldly, eyes full of disgust. "I'm sure you know how to properly take care of a pregnant woman." I was utterly broken. I turned to leave, but he yanked me back roughly. "Got the results? Unless you die, don't think of escaping me in this lifetime." I trembled all over, laughed bitterly at his shamelessness. Just when I thought I'd be imprisoned by him forever, someone appeared around the corner. The hem of a white shirt lifted slightly in the wind. He looked the same as the moment he passed out. A lazy, mocking voice rang out, "What if I insist on taking her away?" The moment I saw my childhood sweetheart, I froze on the spot. Damon's face instantly darkened. His grip on Vivian tightened. "Kale, no matter when you woke up, this has nothing to do with you." "How does it not?" Kale's voice was calm, yet it sent chills down my spine. He stopped beside me, pinched my cheek lightly with a dangerous smile. "Whatever concerns her, concerns me." My breath caught in my throat. I tried to pull away, but he grabbed my wrist firmly. Damon sneered, "You think you can take her away?" Kale raised an eyebrow. "Want to try me?" As soon as the words left his mouth, a commotion echoed from the hallway. Several men in black rushed toward us. Tension filled the air in an instant. Kale chuckled softly, leaned close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. His voice dropped to a lazy whisper that felt like a spell. "Wanna run?" My heart pounded like thunder, fists clenched so tight they trembled. Damon's gaze turned venomous. His voice dropped cold and sharp, "She's not going anywhere. The moment she gets 10 steps away from me, it'll be worse than death." "Eve, am I wrong?" My heart stopped for a beat. I tried to ignore the bitterness rising in my throat. This was the man I had loved for 10 years. But when he cursed me, he didn't hesitate for a second. When he brought back 99 naked models, every excuse sounded more righteous than the last. Even when our daughter died in front of him, he didn't blink. This heartless man actually had the audacity to say he wanted to keep me imprisoned for life? I ignored him and looked up at Cale. His eyes were bloodshot, the tension between the two men razor-sharp. "Run," I suddenly said. "What?" He froze for a second. I yanked him by the arm and dashed toward the emergency stairwell. Behind us came Damon's furious roar and the chaotic stomping of feet. Cale quickly caught on and sprinted like the wind, gripping my hand tightly. The wind howled past my ears. I stumbled to keep up with his pace, my heart pounding as if it might burst out of my chest. Once we passed the 10-step mark, a searing pain flared up in my chest. I gasped for air, my head spinning until everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in Damon's villa. His face was grim, and his voice cold enough to freeze. "Eve, you really dared to run?" Vivian took the opportunity to snuggle into his arms, her watery eyes peeking at me pitifully. "Damon, don't be mad. It's all my fault. Sister Eve must have gotten jealous and left because of me. It should have been me who left." She deliberately shook her wrist, flashing the ancestral jade bracelet that was supposed to be mine, smiling at me with smug provocation. Damon suddenly yanked her into his arms and bit her earlobe in front of me, letting out a cold laugh. "Jealous? Jealous of Vivian? I told you, she's just my muse. Why are you always so unreasonable? Or was it that the second Cale woke up, you opened your legs for him?" Vivian gave me a scornful look, blushing as she nestled deeper into his chest. "Oh Damon, Sister Eve must have just been too lonely. That's probably why she tried to seduce Cale." I snapped. I grabbed the crystal ashtray on the coffee table and hurled it at Damon. Crash. Shards of glass slashed across his face. Vivian screamed and shrank back in fear. "Jealous?" I laughed so hard my shoulders shook. "Damon, you think you're worth it? You think everyone's as disgusting as you?" Suddenly, the projector on the wall clicked on by itself, looping high-definition footage of Damon flirting by the pool with one of his exotic meow models. Vivian's face turned pale as death. "I remembered all your little model numbers." I shook my phone. "Shall I FaceTime Grandpa Damon right now? Show him how his precious grandson turned the family villa into a brothel?" Veins bulged on Damon's forehead. He let out a chilling laugh. "You really think Grandpa Damon would protect you? He's dreaming of a mixed-blood grandchild. He doesn't give a damn about a useless woman who couldn't even protect her own daughter." I bit down on my lip hard. This scum, he didn't even deserve to be a father. "Damon." Ben burst in, panic in his voice. "Cale's family blew up our villa at the docks." Damon's face darkened in an instant. His trembling fingers dialed a number I knew all too well. "Serena." A sudden explosion of pain tore through my chest. I vomited a mouthful of dark blood. I looked up, utterly stunned, at the man I had shared a bed with for 10 years. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Hot tears dropped uncontrollably onto the floor. So that's how it was. The 98th meow model he kept at the dock villa, Serena. The one who said she didn't want to be a nude model anymore. She was the one he truly cared about. And me? I was nothing more than a living alarm system. The mother goo was planted in her, the child goo in me. If she got hurt, I would feel the pain. He didn't keep me around out of love, he needed me to sense Serena's condition. What a joke. And to think I once mistook that for love. Even when I found out he had cursed me. Even when he lied that Serena had returned to the Meow Village, I chose to forgive him. Ah! Vivian suddenly screamed, rushing to cradle Damon's bleeding hand. Turns out Serena hadn't answered the call, and Damon crushed the teacup in his palm out of pure rage. Porcelain shards pierced deep into his flesh, blood dripping down his fingers. His icy glare swept across my ashen face. Then suddenly, He lunged forward and grabbed my throat in a vice grip. Tell me. What did Cale do to Serena? His voice was so cold, it chilled to the bone. Vivian held her forehead, trying to lean on him coquettishly. Damon, I feel faint. Can we go to the hospital first? I laughed coldly at this clueless woman. Sure enough, Damon shoved her away roughly. Get lost. Vivian's stomach slammed into the edge of the table, her skirt instantly soaked with blood. As her shrill wails echoed in the room, Damon's grip on my neck tightened. My vision began to blur. I'll ask one last time. Where is Cale? He leaned in, each word dripping venom into my ear. I don't know, I choked out the words with the last of my strength. Eve. He flung me to the ground in fury, letting me collapse like a rag doll. You plagiarized my drafts back then, and now you help your childhood sweetheart hurt my woman? If not for Serena, I'd be dead. 10 years of marriage, and you're this heartless? I mustered my strength, spat a mouthful of blood in his face. Damon, I never stole your damn drafts. Cale would never stoop to using someone else's trash. And your precious little model, I smiled cruelly. Maybe she's already gone up in smoke at the docks. That sentence completely ignited his fury. A hard slap sent me sprawling to the ground. He grabbed my hair and dragged me toward the balcony. 30 stories up, the cold wind howled. I looked at the gray, hazy sky and for a brief moment, felt relieved. My parents were gone. My daughter was gone. There was nothing left in this world to keep me here. Just as he was about to throw me over the edge, the door burst open with a crash. Cale stepped in, gun pressed against Serena's temple. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, her lips cracked and bleeding, red trailing down her chin. It was clear she'd been brutally tortured. I never imagined Cale could be this ruthless. But on second thought, Damon had run him over and left him in a vegetative state for years. Anyone would want to tear their enemy apart. Serena was clearly bearing the brunt of his rage. Damon's face turned ashen, his grip on my wrist tightening like a vice. His voice was ice, let her go, or I'll throw Eve off right now. Cale chuckled as if he'd just heard the most ridiculous joke. His shoulders shook slightly as he laughed. Damon, are you still living in a dream? He tilted his head, sarcasm practically spilling from his eyes. You really thought Eve stole your sketches? That Serena came into your life to save you? His gun pressed harder against Serena's temple, voice suddenly cold and sharp. Tell him, dear little half-sister. Serena spat blood, her eyes venomous like a serpent soaked in poison. You're all idiots. Especially you, Damon. Beyond saving. She grinned with blood-stained lips, her smile twisted and cruel. Remember that rainy night? You had just finished your draft, eager to get home to share it with your wife, only to hit me with your car. You rushed me to the hospital, and I took your masterpiece along the way. Damon's pupils shrank sharply. His voice was hoarse. Why? To win over Cale, of course. She burst into maniacal laughter, but the next second, Cale smashed the butt of his gun into her face. She crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. Cale looked down on her coldly, eyes full of disgust. Don't flatter yourself. I never acknowledged you as my sister. And I sure as hell don't want someone else's trash. Serena raised her bloodied face, still laughing. It's all your fault. If you hadn't rejected me, I wouldn't have locked you up. You never would have found out. Found out you know how to use goop curses? Cale sneered. Is that supposed to scare me? Damon suddenly interrupted, voice trembling, but you did save me, didn't you? Save you? Serena looked like she'd heard the joke of the century. When exactly? When you tried to jump into the river because you thought your wife betrayed you? Or when you were on the rooftop losing your mind? Threatening to jump? She stared at him, her voice sharp and deliberate. Every time, it was Eve who saved you. Me? I only altered your memories. I made you hate her. Made you torture her. As for why? Isn't it obvious? You hit the man I loved with your car. Isn't that right, brother? Damon's face turned ghostly pale. He suddenly turned to me, gripping my arm so tightly it cut into my flesh. Is it true? I looked at him, and suddenly, everything about him seemed laughable. Yes. You didn't know? I smirked. Of course you didn't. All you ever saw were your so-called muses. Even when I caught you in bed with them. You claimed they were just sources of inspiration. His expression twisted in pain. He reached out to touch me. But I slapped his hand away hard. Smack. The crisp sound rang sharp in the silent room. In that moment, the urge to jump disappeared completely. Why should I die? The ones who should suffer are them. Cale pulled me behind him protectively, then lazily glanced toward a corner. Damon, if you don't deal with your little girlfriend. She's about to lose more than just her baby. I followed his gaze. Vivian was curled up on the floor. A pool of blood spreading beneath her. Her face was pale as a corpse, and she was in too much pain to even make a sound. Damon's breathing quickened. He stared at me, his voice trembling like a man drowning. Eve, please, come here. I was wrong. I won't bring anyone else home again. I'll make Serena lift the curse. I calmly took a step back, watching as the hope drained from his eyes bit by bit. He asked with a shaking voice. You still hate me because of Nova, don't you? I didn't know. Enough. I closed my eyes wearily and pulled out the divorce papers from my pocket. Sign it. His hand shook so hard he could barely hold the pen. But eventually, he scrawled his name, shaky and crooked, across the page. As Cale and I walked away, I heard him whisper softly, I'm sorry. But those 3 words were far too late. After that day, I personally uploaded photos online, 99 lewd pictures of Damon bringing naked models home. 99 nude bodies. Each photo dated. The latest? Taken on the anniversary of Nova's death. Grandpa Damon's hands trembled as he flipped through them. Finally, he threw them in Damon's face with a roar. You've destroyed 100 years of family honor, you beast. That very afternoon, Damon's name was slashed out from the ancestral records in the family shrine. But that still wasn't enough. I found that blurry but fatal footage from Damon's dashcam and posted it online. In the video, Damon gripped the steering wheel tightly, his eyes full of murderous intent as he slammed down the gas pedal. Cale's body flew through the air like a broken kite. You could even hear Damon's maniacal laughter in the background. The internet exploded instantly. Hashtag heir to wealth premeditated murder hashtag vegetative conspiracy hashtag the painter unmasked the fans who once adored him turned on him overnight. Brands he collaborated with cut ties one after another. Now the entire city knew, the once celebrated genius painter was nothing more than a homicidal madman who had failed to kill. And that rainy night. By the time Vivian was rushed to the hospital, it was already too late. Dr. Carter cut open her swollen belly, but the fetus inside had long since lost all signs of life. She died with her eyes wide open, as if questioning the cruelty of the world to her very last breath. Damon going to prison became a certainty. During that time, I visited him once. The once proud and brilliant man now looked like a stray dog. His prison uniform was stained with something suspicious, and his exposed wrists were riddled with needle marks. I'd heard he had picked up a drug habit inside. The guards said he was specially taken care of every single day. He cowered in the corner of the visitation room, unable to meet my eyes. But when I mentioned our daughter, he suddenly lost it, slamming his head against the bulletproof glass like a man possessed, as if he truly wished he were dead. As for Serena, her end was even more pitiful. They said she'd developed severe mental illness. She was confined to a padded isolation ward in a psychiatric hospital, undergoing electroshock therapy daily. The goo curse on me? It had been lifted 3 months ago. Kale was the one who found the antidote. At sunset, Kale proposed to me. He looked strikingly handsome, his sharp eyes tinged with red at the tips. The man who always acted lazy and carefree was suddenly tongue-tied. He got down on one knee, voice clear and sincere. "Eve, would I be lucky enough to be your next chapter?" I smiled, and gently refused him. He had only just returned to the world, and I couldn't be the one to hold him back. He deserved a better choice. He tried to stay calm as he put away the ring. But the trembling of his hand gave away everything he felt inside. I turned my eyes away. And silently wished that in the days ahead, his life would be smooth, safe, and full of joy.